Iodine is one of the things that you preach is super important to maintain health and well-being. For somebody, because this is one of those controversial supplements and, components within food, which has been decreased a lot in more recent times, let's start out talking about the controversy. Why are people either all in or totally avoiding iodine?
Because of yodophobia, because since Theodore Kocher had a reaction to probably a halide toxicity, he had some potassium iodide I don't know, 1890 or 1910, something like that. He was a thyroidologist, a Swiss thyroidologist. So he was having he had a lot of work because the Swiss all had goiters. So many, because it's in the mountains. So mountainous areas, there's less iodine because all of the iodine has washed down away from the mountainsides. So cutting out a lot of mostly women's goiters. And he basically came out against iodine and the medical world because he won a Nobel Prize for medicine. A few years later, everything he said was it. So you had people at the same time saying, this is horrible that we're not using iodine because they saw that it worked for so many things as a disinfectant, as the thyroid needed it, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden he decreed it poison. So then it happened again in the 50s with Wolf Chaikoff. So bad science.
Okay, well, let's talk about iodine in the food supply.
There isn't
Any food significant sources?
No, because we have a negative state of iodine. Our world is poisoned with goiterogenic substances. So people in Bolivia, people in my family's from Tennessee. I never lived in Tennessee, but I have an aunt, 2 cousins, more people, all iodine deficient. They all had thyroid issues. Mountains of Tennessee. Okay. So mountainous areas. I've talked to people in Haiti, a lot of iodine. I mean, you can just, it's just, and it affects women. Michigan was a big area of iodine deficiency. That's a goiter belt. So you can look on Google and you'll see what were the areas of goiter belts. But the goiter belt is now so pervasive, not because the soil has changed, but because we have fluoride everywhere. We have bromide in my chair cushion probably has bromide in it. PFAs are inescapable. I mean, I have a fancy filter that says it takes some out, but not enough for me to be secure that if when my daughter's pregnant, I'm going to let her drink the water without taking a lot of iodine. So you can survive in this world if you take the iodine. It's your shield against these goitrogens.
Because there's been so much fear instilled in the population against supplementing with iodine, I'm sure a lot of people tuning in have avoided it. I know for a long period of time I did myself, even being in the health world, because there is so much scare still around that supplement. How does somebody begin? If they're deciding at this point, I'm going to begin to supplement, I haven't been doing it to this point. How much? What type?
Okay, so there's 2 types. There used to be only Jean Dugol's recipe of 15%. He called it 15% because it was 10% potassium iodide and 5% elemental organic crystals of iodine. So then the yodophobic people, I don't know. I mean, Jay Crows is one of the oldest purveyors of iodine in the US. They invented the 2% maybe to make it less scary. I have no idea. The 5% is equal to 15%, the original recipe. Now what's an interesting story, in Europe, I still do, but I used to have to provide my patients with iodine because you couldn't get it anywhere except the UK. The UK still had supplement companies that were selling 15% Lugol solution. Europe, nowhere. So as soon as COVID hit, I didn't have to make it for them anymore. Every single Amazon in Europe started selling Lugol's iodine, 5%, 2%, 7%, because it's an antiviral. So nobody talks about it. And everybody says iodine is bad, But boom, all the Amazons are selling it because it's a known, scientifically proven antiviral. All right, so how do you start? I would start with, it depends upon, the real issue here is that if you have a goiter and you don't know it, if you have a thyroid nodule and you don't know it, if it hasn't been diagnosed, the iodine will be like a kick in the butt to your thyroid. Your thyroid will all of a sudden might wait. Some people will have palpitations. That's like a worst case scenario. So 1 drop of iodine could make your thyroid suddenly start trying to work. It's limping and now it's trying to run. So for some people that doesn't feel good, and then you have to do a detox process. Otherwise, everybody should start with 2% five, the two drops of the 5%. Sorry,
Okay, so 5%, 2 drops.
which is actually 15%, but you know.
Okay. And if somebody didn't have a negative reaction to that amount, would that be a good maintenance dose?
No, it's a good dose to top you up, but that goes through a whole. I mean, you could say there. I mean, if you have swollen prostate, if you have issues, maybe you should try to raise it. It's really, it really depends on what's going on. I can't really just give this for that, this for that. We know that excess iodine comes out in the urine, so somebody who has a a fibroid in the breast, I would say they would need more than 2 drops. Somebody who has cysts in their ovaries, I would say they need more drops.
And once they cleared those health complications, they could come down to a more,
Yeah, the two.
we'll call it a maintenance dose of
Yeah,
2 drops of
yeah.
the
The
5%.
2 drops is what the Jorge Fletches and Guy Abraham in the 80s figured out with their Hakala lab would bring you, once you were sufficient in iodine in your system, all the cells were saturated, the 2 drops a day would top you up, as the British like to say. That's all you needed to put in to make sure that you had a constant supply, adequate supply.
And you quickly touched on the fact that we can eliminate extra. How efficient is that system?
Oh,
Is
very.
there ever
Kidneys.
people that run into toxicity, or is it if the kidneys
No.
are healthy, people will be good?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what about men versus women? I know at one point there you highlighted for women, it sounded like being more important, but I'll have you elaborate on that. And does dosage differ between the two?
It's more important for women definitely during adolescence because women build more sexual characteristics. So women build physically more stuff. They build breasts, they build a uterus, it increases, the ovaries get bigger. All these tissues need iodine. So men obviously need iodine during adolescence too. The testes and the scrotum are growing bigger, but they don't need as much. They will also suffer if they're uh, around goitrogenic substances, but not as much. So yes, women, an adolescent, and in fact, Marine's studies in Akron, Ohio, he was preventing goiters in adolescent girls in the 20s. He didn't even bother with the boys. He didn't check them out because they didn't have a history of getting goiter. But the goiter belt of Akron, Ohio, the girls did.
And when we're talking about supplementing, are we talking about orally? I assume we are, but you also hear about people putting it on the skin and supposedly absorbing it that way, or using that as a test to see how
Yeah.
deficient we are in iodine.
Yeah, I
So
use that
talk
as a
about
test.
all
Okay.
those and some nuance there.
All right. If you have a breast cyst, definitely put it on your breast. Paint your breast. If you have a skin lesion, a mole, put it on there. You can put it on your skin that way. It's amazing at healing wounds. So Dr. David Derry even put out a paper with showing how the skin healed faster. A laceration and a wound healed faster with iodine, and he would put saran wrap on it.
So you're saying you could use it on site of injury. I was asking about using it
Oh,
on the skin as a
oral.
testing method,
Yes,
and
as
then
a testing
using it on
method.
the skin as a method of getting it into the body versus oral.
No, I would definitely say that you want to have it orally. My husband and I, my kids take it in a glass of water. We use gelatin caps. a glass of water, a little bit of water. Um, it wouldn't be adequate to absorb it. A lot of it evaporates if you're gonna. I mean, it's good. It's a okay measure to test to see how fast it evaporates and is absorbed, because it's going to evaporate some. So it's not enough. You're not going to saturate your cells by painting yourself with it. It's a decent test to see how much you need, because some people it'll last for 12 hours and some people it'll be gone in a half an hour. That means they sucked it in, right? But for me, it's not adequate as a dosing mechanism to put it on your skin.
And would you have any concern about taking it orally and negative impacts on a healthy gut microbiome?
No, it only does good. All mucus bearing tissue is really rich in iodine. So, mucus bearing tissue being in the gut, the intestinal, the villi the villi are covered with the mucus, your nasal passages, the vaginal canal, everywhere where there's mucus has a ton of iodine.
And what do you see with people if they're an adult who haven't been supplementing and given the deficiency, in the food supply? You mentioned the thyroid, you used terminology, something like turning on. What do you notice with people when they start taking this, if they've gone a lifetime without using it? What are some of the changes you see acutely and then longer term?
Lymph system, the lymph nodes shrink, the lipomas shrink, the cysts shrink, fibroids shrink. There's a lot of need for it. And then, of course, the thyroid, though, if they have gone a lifetime without any iodine and they've been deficient, they're probably going to have a thyroid issue.
Okay.
And I see that a lot.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
A person who eats only plants cannot get cholesterol, therefore will not be able to adequately make, especially women, the hormones they need for their cycle, for adolescence, and to address stress. We evolved to eat this food. We evolved to eat